might not have regarding our project. We also have with us Elizabeth Hennessy from Raymond James, and she would be able to answer some specific questions regarding our bonds and the debt that we have currently. And most importantly, present at the table is Mr. John Langdon. He's hiding behind us, but our HEA president, and some of our teachers are behind out there too, whom you can talk to later on to understand the day-to-day space constraints of how they handle and how they are managing. So in case there's some particular building that you want to know about, or you want to know how they're dealing with certain things, we have band, PE, definitely out there, so which are some of our major areas of concern. So, So for tonight's agenda, the way we've broken up this meeting is we're going to talk about some of our academic and extracurricular excellence. We'll give you some current building information and the enrollment numbers of when the buildings were built. We'll talk a little bit about the last year's referendum that failed. I just want to kind of refresh everybody's mind on what was asked. What we are looking for it from there is your ideas of what you liked, you didn't like about that plan, something you would want to change, anything that you would want, but we wanted to refresh a bit on that. There's a little bit of finance information, but we are not going to go in depth with it because it didn't make sense, because we want to see what your ideas are. From there, we'll take those ideas, make it into a concept, and then we'll run the numbers to support that concept. We'll talk about what some of the constraints are, what the constraints and decisions will be. After that, we'll have a little bit of a town hall for some time, and then we'll break out into small groups. All of us, whom I said at the table, are here. Everybody who's an expert in that are here. Our principals are here, so if you want to talk to them about their specific schools, anybody and everybody is here. So if you need any information, I hope you will get it. If we can't get something to you, if you could please leave your name or contact information, and we'll make sure that we get back to you. When you come down for a town hall, if you could just please come down, because there's a mic there so all of us can hear you clearly, and sign in your name or
Use this one? Handheld? Okay. Is it on?
Turn it on.
Hello?
Yeah.
There we go. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. I get the opportunity to share with you some of the academic and extracurricular excellence that our district provides to our community and our students. For those of you that may not have met me in the past, my name is Nick Brown. I am the superintendent. I'm proud to be here serving you and your children. There are a lot of great things that have occurred for our schools historically and ongoing. One of the things to point out is that this year we performed in the 88th percentile on PARCC. That means our scores, it's not the percentage that passed, it's where we rank against all other schools in the state for K through 8. We rank in the 88th percentile. That means we're performing better than 88% of the rest of the districts in the state. We also have received some excellent recognition and awards over the years. We recently, in 2016, won the Communities of Music Excellence Award for our strong programs in our music for K through 8. Our middle schools, if you have not gone to one of the concerts or the band concerts or to listen to the choir, you really should. They sound like professionals. They're unbelievable. We have Elementary Science Olympiad that's being piloted at Townline. That's not happening at other schools. We also have the National Boards Professional Development School at Elementary North. That does not happen at many other districts. We're piloting many things for the elementary level districts within our state. We also have Middle School North receiving the Whole Child Award from ASCD this year. We have some nationally recognized principals at the middle school level. We have Our Code, trying to get some technology within our students' hands and prepare them for the future. We also have a very diverse community, over 60 different languages. We think that is a great strength and provides for excellent programming in our community for our students as they'll go out to a very diverse world, and it also helps them be prepared to how you meet other people in a different culture. So we try to build that into our programming that we have. We have full-day kindergarten for all, which is not something that happens everywhere. We think that's great. At the middle school level, we're doing personalized learning with one-to-one, which is a new pilot program we're working on, and we're seeing some results there with the kids being more engaged in their own learning. Most of our students, we go to 4 different high schools. Most of our students go to District 128, Vernon Hills High School, Libertyville, with 80% of them going to Vernon Hills High School. In Vernon Hills High School, what's interesting is those are all our students going there. It is nationally ranked as one of the top 2 in the state and in the top 2% nationally for its performance. It has excellent extracurricular programs and excellent arts programs as well. And those are our students going to that high school to go on to future in college and other areas. So we're very proud of the end product where they go to the high school and how they're prepared and ready to go. As we talk about extracurriculars at the high school, it's also important to note that here at Hawthorn, we provide 84 different clubs and extracurricular activities for our students to participate in. We also provide a wonderful, rich summer program for students of all sorts of different programs for them. And we're trying to help them throughout the entire school year and in the summer to be prepared and enjoy their learning. So we're very proud of what we've accomplished and what we continue to accomplish and some of the recognitions that we get. And thank you, I know my principals are here, and thank you to them and my other administrators and the teachers that are here within the district. That is not possible without all the hard work that they do in partnership with the parents. So thank you very much.
All right, so we're going to do a quick, brief overview of the history of our district buildings.
Before he gets on, this is Matt Jacobs, one of our board members.
Quick slide on basically the age of all the structures that we have within the district. These were all built as grade centers, which is why they're kind of clumped together. And that each of them, as you can see, are rather old. They've been touched maybe 1 or 2 times with additions, with the exception of Elementary North. And then, of course, we've got John Powers, which is the home for the Special Education District of Lake County's program for early child all the way to 8th grade for the deaf and hard of hearing. And those children actually come back and forth between Elementary North and Middle North for some programming as well. So this is the capacity of the schools, each of the schools. And when we talk about capacity, we're talking about actual program capacity, not fire code capacity. So this is capacity on a 25-to-1 ratio, which is kind of the ratio that we've been given feedback on that no one wants to go over for each class. So as you can see, we are pretty much at or close to the current limits of each of these structures with the 25-to-1 ratio. The outlier right now is Elementary North, but that is a different situation. They've got programming there such as the Learning Opportunities program, which basically capped capacity of those classrooms at 10 kids. So if you have 50 kids, you can only have there goes my math right out the door. So if you have 50 kids, you can only have 10 classes. So you're basically using classrooms designed for much larger classes for smaller groups. So as the programming requirements have changed over the years for each of these programs, our space has not been able to grow with those. And we've all seen this one. It's been out there for quite a while. This is the Kasarda study, which has the Series B and the Series C. Series B is where we're basically at this point. We are meeting or exceeding this for the last couple of years. Last year we were over. This year we're a little bit under, but only by a small fraction. So this is where we have our problems. The Series B, you don't want to build for Series B if we're already there. It doesn't make sense. You almost have to plan for Series C, which is why last year, they were basically pushing for the Series C plan. And since June of 2017, we have added an additional 104 students across the district. And we're also going to see one of the largest classes at Middle North next year with approximately 245 kids per the 6th grade. And their average is at 224 over the past 3 years. Again, this is the enrollment trends across each of the buildings. The functional capacity, which is that first bar, it's kind of tough to see. And then the actual capacity of each building over the past 4 years, and that we are obviously exceeding or at the levels across there. And again, Elementary North looks a little bit different, but because of the programming that goes on there, those classrooms are basically a capacity as well. And of course, we've got the Vernon Hills growth, where we know we're going to have growth with new neighborhoods, with Woodland Chase, the Icon Builders, which is at number 2, and then Cuneo, Melody Farms, and Riviera Estates and Greg's Landing. We also have some land in Mundelein that falls within our district that has not been developed, but as things are going, I would anticipate that that would probably be developed as well, which would, again, put more strain on the current structures.
Thanks, Matt.
Can you introduce yourself? No, just talking.
Okay. The mic.
Yeah.
Good evening. I'm going to discuss some current constraints that we have in our buildings.
Let me introduce you. This is Bess Poland, one of our board members.
At Town Line Elementary, we have displaced classrooms. 2 classes that are displaced have no classroom or health, and it's on a cart, so the health teacher brings health to the students, and the enrichment classroom is on the stage. So the stage is not able to be used because it's been turned into classroom space.
It's called the Bat Cave. The kids call it that.
At Elementary South, there's 2 portable classrooms. Health is in a portable classroom as well as art. Band and orchestra are in the former kitchen area. Music classes are held on their stage, and some of the PE classes have to go to Aspen to use the multipurpose room for their PE class. At Middle School South, PE has to utilize hallway space for certain activities. The chorus is utilizing the cafeteria. The cafeteria is currently at capacity, and some of the staff have to share classroom space. Middle School North, their PE is in the cafeteria and also in the hallways during lunchtime. The choir room and music rooms are at capacity, and there's also not appropriate space for the related arts. At Aspen Elementary, all classrooms are currently being used, so if another section of a grade level has to be opened, there is no currently room, so that means that art will go on a cart. The band rehearses on the stage. They have to share classrooms and spaces for services, and the library is not being utilized as it has to share its space as well. At Elementary North, PE uses the cafeteria and hallway spaces, and some of the special education teachers have to share classroom space.
So at Town Line, we do have some issues with space. First of all, for the past 3 years, we've had our enrichment teacher, Mrs. Schmidt, teaching enrichment classes for 4th and 5th grade on the stage. That does impact Town Line and dual language chorus. Unfortunately, they're not able to put on their productions for musicals twice a year. They have to find other ways to perform. We do have some issues also with ELL Russian bilingual students. We have a lot more of them, so we have to service them appropriately. We do have up to 10 students in a very small office space, which is hard to teach with 10 students in a very small area. That's a struggle as well. And lastly, we do have art in the cart, and does impact Town Line and dual language. Mrs. Smith, because she doesn't have her own art room, has to move from room to room and floor to floor to make sure she teaches art for her students.
At Hawthorn Middle School North, our space issues have been in physical education, where for the past 3 years we've discussed the issues in regards to space, with physical education being in the cafeteria, physical education taking place in the cafeteria during the 3 various lunch periods, in the hallways, in the fitness room, as well as in the gymnasium, where would be appropriate place for physical education. In the area of the arts, we have well over 400 kids in band, orchestra, and choir. We're pretty packed in those performance areas for band, orchestra, and choir. There's a lot of children. We're very proud and always ecstatic about the number of kids in band, orchestra, and choir. It's something that is in our strategic plan. It's something we celebrate as a district. I mean, absolutely, it's been the same space issues we've talked about for years, either with our architectural firm or at board meetings or presentations. That really hasn't changed those past couple of years. Other areas of concern have been our class sizes. As to date, in February 2018, we've had 52 move-ins since the beginning of the school year. Every week we get more students moving in and are scheduled to be in our various classes at Hawthorn Middle School North. We have classes well into the 30s. We have various advanced classes in English and mathematics at the 8th grade level. We're at 35, 36. So one of our concerns right now that we've clearly expressed is our classroom sizes.
At Aspen School, we have a few space concerns that still exist after reorganization. The first one really is our cafeteria and its proximity to the band and orchestra room. We no longer have a dedicated space for students to have lessons throughout the course of the day, so they participate in lessons on the stage. That stage is right next to the cafeteria. So from the hours of 10 o'clock until 12 o'clock, students in their band or orchestra lessons are hearing all of the noise from the cafeteria. The cafeteria itself has to house more students than normal when we have first and second grade eating together. That was a change that happened with the addition of full-day kindergarten. When all of those students are in together, we are pressed to have enough space for all of them to sit. We also run into issues with getting all of the students through the food line in an appropriate amount of time so they have enough time to eat. In addition to that, we have issues and concerns with our library space. The design itself is difficult and was traditionally and originally built so that we could have a computer lab, workspace for students, and a reading room where the librarian could meet with full classes of students to introduce new literature to them. Since the change in reorganization, we had to take some of that space back so that we had enough office area for ELL and bilingual. The end result is that students no longer have a reading space and need to sit on the floor between computers so that they can listen to new information from the librarian. We also continue to have Elementary South join us every day for PE classes in our multi-purpose room. We're happy to be able to provide that space, but it could be utilized differently so that we would have additional health space, more space for up to 5 sections at 5th grade to have PE classes. Finally, we converted several work areas for teachers into office spaces so that we could have enough small areas for groups of students to receive interventions and support throughout the course of the day. The end result is there is truly no workroom for our teachers. They've done a nice job figuring out how to work around that, but we'd love to have that space back.
Middle School South has faced space challenges over the last several years. Specifically, we have 54 more students this school year than we did 3 years ago. Looking specifically at our space issues, our cafeteria is a high needs area. We do not have the capacity right now for our lunch periods, and with growing enrollment, that's going to continue to present issues for us. Additionally, the cafeteria doubles as our choir space. So all of our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade choir students have that class in the cafeteria on a daily basis. Our PE classes have had to take place in hallways. This specifically presents a challenge when we're dismissing from lunch and PE classes are happening in the hallways. Our 6th grade classes are large, with more students anticipated to be here. We have several class sections that are over 30 currently. Mrs. Ray, one of our writing teachers, is teaching out of our resource center and not in a classroom. If you walk our building here at Middle School South, you will notice that we have physical education as well as music equipment in the hallways for a lack of storage space. Finally, we have several science classes in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade that are taking place in non-science classroom designed classrooms. Without any new space, we will continue to face challenges here at Middle School South, and that will have an impact on programming as well as our students' experiences.
Hi, and welcome to Elementary South. We too are having some space issues here at Elementary South. We house 750 to 780 children. That number fluctuates throughout the school year. We have 5 or 6 classes of every grade level, and with 32 homerooms, traveling to specials makes it difficult. Some of the things that we've had to accommodate because of space are having a mobile classroom. For the past 2 years, we have art and health out in the mobiles. Also, we have music on the stage. Now, music on the stage is also adjacent to the gym space, so they're fighting for sound all the time. Also, we have band and orchestra lessons in our old kitchen, which you'll see on the video. The orchestra large group lessons play in the morning in the same room as the cafeteria, so breakfast is going on with large group orchestra in the morning, and band is going on in the gym adjacent to HAP daycare, so they are also fighting for noise in the morning. Additionally, we have only one main hallway here at Elementary South, so during our lunch hour, we travel approximately 300 kids down the one main hallway to get in and out of the cafeteria. In addition to that, we have gym classes that go over to Aspen for PE, and we also have 3 or 4 gym classes that share one gym space. So as you can see, Elementary South is tight on space.
Hi, we have a few places at Elementary North where we are feeling the crunch of having increased enrollment and smaller space. One of the areas, Elementary North is one of our older buildings. We have only one gym and one multi-purpose room. In order to provide PE and physical education and health service supports to all of our students, we do utilize our cafeteria. However, our cafeteria is unavailable not only for the time that we provide lunch and breakfast services to our students, but also for an opportunity to obviously clean it and have it ready again. This year, the way we're feeling that is our kindergarten classes, 2 of them are combined. 2 teachers are working together with a larger group of kindergartners to provide PE in one of those spaces when the cafeteria is unavailable. Sometimes students are also utilizing the hallways, some of the long hallways, in times like these, especially with this weather when we aren't able to be outside and take advantage of our field spaces. So the PE spaces is definitely a challenge here at Elementary North. We do not have a stage of any kind or any areas like that. So to do whole school assemblies, we need to do them on an angle in between our gym and our cafeteria. Also not ideal and very challenging. So our open houses and any sorts of presentations occur in that way as well.
Okay, so the next part of the presentation is talking about the Education Facilities Master Plan. So this plan was put together under the guidance of DLR architects, the educators, which are the administrators and the teachers, and the community members. This plan, to support this plan, was what was put in on the referendum, the dollar amount. We'll briefly touch on it today so that you can just tell us specifically what you like, did not like, what you might want to modify, or any new ideas you might have. All the buildings that you will see, the plan is broken down into the North Campus and South Campus just so that it could fit on a slide. All the blue buildings that you see the blue blocks that you see are additions. A lot of it is classes. I know it's not very clear here. It was in the presentations, and all these presentations are available online on our website. So if you click on them, you can see everything in details and possible. Even if you contact anyone from our at our staff in the district office, they'll be more than happy to print out a copy for you as a hard copy if you would like it later. They won't have it today. So all the facilities master plan was not only to accommodate what today's enrollment, as you saw, is, which is definitely growth and not fitted into our current space, but it was also to house the enrollment that is projected out for the next 10 years. This was the same thing that was done in 2002 when Town Line was built. So it was built 2002, Town Line referendum went out, so this is 2018. So it's been 16 years. It's about kind of time for what the demographics change, projections change. That's why we got the Kasarda demographic study done. Most of the schools got classrooms because that was needed, as you saw, in all the classrooms. And classrooms are just for the enrollment purposes. Also, the educational support spaces. As you've seen, as the enrollment increases, so does your kids who need support, whether it's special needs or it's your ELL support staff that you. So you need more spaces where you can pull out the students and give them educational support, whether it's speech or OT or anything else. More students also need more PE space, cafeteria space, and so that was also increased. As you can see, also, so this plan that not only had classrooms, but also had the PE space, the educational support spaces, and the cafeteria. If you look at Middle North, it's like blue all around the building. So it got pretty much everything because they need everything. But if you look at Town Line does not need PE space, but they do need classroom and educational space. So that was what Town Line got. In this plan also, one of the things that we did include was bringing our EC Pre-K back on site. Right now, our EC Pre-K is run at an off-site facility along with Fremont and Mundelein, and they run it at the Lincoln School in Mundelein. We wanted to make sure that if we were going to go 10 years out, we had the plan of bringing those students back on site. And this was part of the plan. The addition was done onto Elementary North as they did not need a lot of additions. They needed mostly their PE addition was one of their big additions they needed. They seemed to have enough classroom spaces. We also wanted to save as much green space as possible. So if we kept building out, the problem was going to be we were going to land up running out of outside space for all the schools. And I'm going to kind of just jump down. This is the South Campus, which is the Middle South, in which Middle South also needed, as you saw Mr. Natal say, you needed some more PE space, a bit of cafeteria space, and classroom spaces to house their children. And this is the Aspen. Aspen did not need much of classroom spaces. I think if Elementary South kids move out, they can reclaim their PE space and move kids around a little bit more. So it did not need a lot of addition onto Aspen, and Elementary South needed a lot. They need PE space, they need music space, they need classroom spaces, they need resources, they have a huge enrollment. All schools got the upgrades in technology and health and safety that was needed. So when you see the final dollar amount that we calculated, it was based on the need of each of the schools. The buildings also needed to be up to code as the codes have changes. What all schools also got was a renovation to the library. Without giving my age away, when we went to school, library was a place where you went, there were all books, and you got shushed by the librarian if you talked. Things have changed a lot since then. Nowadays, they have flexible spaces for student collaboration. They have beanbags in the library. We never saw that when we were younger. There's technology, visual literacy, and definitely extended access. So students want to spend their time there, explore, and engage. These new libraries are called library media centers, but there are many different ways they call it. They call it a media center, something else. If you read any of the educational papers, you'll see, or even if you read what our neighborhoods are doing, you'll see that there's a lot of things that they do. But all the schools got their libraries upgraded to the new technology in the 21st. Similarly, we looked at what the current educational requirements are, the 21st century. What is the world we want our students to know, to grow learning into, and be competitive in this global market and thrive? The 21st century learning environment is all about collaboration, tech integration, and flexibility. The education is more focused on problem solving, critical thinking, and inquiry-based learning. Their learning is mostly interdisciplinary. You will have a science project that needs writing, including with art, with something else. It's really great. To facilitate this kind of learning and an environment, we needed to upgrade our spaces. In doing so, we had the infrastructure upgrades, which we have done last year, but also to do some of our upgrades, we added a STEM classroom. This STEM classroom is something similar to a music room or an art room that each school had. We called it STEM, but it goes by many names, which is STEAM, science labs, maker spaces, project labs. You can open any school or their new designs, and there is a STEM lab, or it is just a room in the school similar to an art room or a music room for the kids to do dedicated interdisciplinary learning. We are not going to go into detail about the financial piece, but because we want to know what your ideas are and what you will support. And we'll come back with our experts to have a plan and know what is the dollar amount we need to support that plan that the community sees for itself. However, when we did put the referendum out, we asked for $42 million. And if you can see, it was broken down into schools. Each school got what they needed to come up to code with coming up to the 21st century learning. And in that, the impact that was going to be on the property taxes was about $26 a month. This number is based on a $42 million bond. We would not have, and I want to make this plenty clear because even going forward, no matter what the scope of the project is, this is not all that would have been issued at one time. A referendum is a permission to issue that bond. The project would have been broken down into phases because there is no way the administrators or we could have managed a huge project of touching every school and managed to educate our children at the same time. So if the project was broken down into half by any means, then the impact would have been, say, half, say about $13 a month. This is important to know because that is how it would actually work out into. We also have debt that falls off in 2024, so the amount that you will pay going forward after 2024 will actually go down. We have the debt from the bonds that were issued for Town Line School. During this process, we decided to build the kindergarten building, and we paid for the kindergarten building from the reserves that we had accumulated by being fiscally responsible. We would definitely like to thank the Park District, the village, and the library for all their support on this project. If we didn't build the kindergarten building, we would not have been able to build all the additions on one building. So I'm going to take an example of Elementary South. Let me see if I can go back. Yes, so on Elementary South. So the kindergarten building once it's built, will take 5 classrooms out of Elementary South. These 5 classrooms will be immediately backfilled with the displaced programming. We are still going to need to build classrooms on Elementary South. So right now, from what the plan was, we needed to build about 4 classrooms, along with the music room and the PE space and all the other spaces that they need. There is not enough space, but if we didn't build the kindergarten building, we would need to build about 9 classrooms to Elementary South, along with the classrooms that have been black-filled, with the music and PE. That much amount of land is not available around Elementary South, so building the kindergarten building was necessary because it allows us to build around our schools to do the programming that we want to see in our schools. One of the comments that we've always heard is, what if we stay the course? You build a kindergarten building, you get some space, what if we do nothing? If we don't do nothing, well, there's still stuff we have to do. The enrollment is going to come, as you've heard from our principals, as you've seen the adjustments we've made. We have no space. So every time kids come in, unless we want ridiculously high numbers of kids in our classroom, which we do have right now in some classes, we'll have to put in portables. Portables cost. We have 2 at Elementary South right now, so you should ask the kids who go there for health and PE how they feel. And not only what they do, I don't think they are the best learning environment. What we've estimated is that if we were allowed the number of portables, now that's a big if the village is even going to allow, it'll look like a shipping yard if I look at all those blue boxes, are all portables 10 years with all the enrollment that we project. So even if the village allows us to put those many portables, we would need about $6 million to just run those portables because they have to run electricity, water, the rent, everything. Money is one thing, but the learning environment is a completely whole thing. And is that what we want for our students? We also still need to do the life safety of the buildings that are currently existing because they are seeing a lot of wear and tear. The estimated cost of the life safety is about $5 million in the next few years. So that is the money we still are going to have to spend, along with whatever we would spend for the portables.
Thank you, Sonali, and thank you everybody for coming. I'm Robin Cleek. I am going to talk to you a little bit about what our neighboring districts are doing. Hit me with the next slide, please. Thank you. I know the print's a little bit small. I don't want to literally read to all of you. So I'm just going to kind of summarize that Libertyville District 70, Deerfield 109, Fremont District, which is in Mundelein, Kildare 96, Aptekissick Trip, which is in Buffalo Grove, Lake Zurich, which has a referendum out for some of these spaces, have all built spaces recently geared towards STEM. So there's labs, there's maker spaces, there's more STEM opportunities. Of course, I do acknowledge public education is not in the district of being a competitive business, but why should we care what other districts are doing? Well, quality schools with access to diverse educational opportunities are a huge factor in determining our property values. So we do want to consider how we can remain attractive compared to our neighboring towns. I appreciate all the work you did for our remarks. I'm going to add a little bit here because I know you were more concise, but you know I'm wordy. So there was feedback after the last referendum in April. We do acknowledge that there was several remarks made that dedicated STEM space was not supported. There were a lot of remarks also that STEM curriculum is supported. So we do want to hear from you tonight and see where that difference lies because STEM curriculum can be done to some extent, obviously, in the classroom, but there are limitations when it doesn't have its own dedicated space for the hands-on opportunities, especially in crowded classrooms. Okay, next slide. Okay, so we know our taxes are high. The 7 of us are taxpayers here as well, and we acknowledge that. We want to respect it and use it as fiscally responsibly as possible. So what are our options? Sonali already touched on stay the course a little bit and what happens if we do that. So portables, which aren't free either, assuming that this growth continues on the same trajectory, which with the 5 developments happening, I think is going to definitely be an occurrence. There's some tough decisions to be made. There can be impacts to programming, impacts to extracurricular opportunities, and obviously if we want to move towards 21st century learning, we're going to have to decide what that's worth to us as well as a community. So all of those options cost money, even if we stay the course right now, if we want to remain an attractive community compared to our neighbors and attract and retain qualified staff, then we do need to get your feedback and hear what you will, what your ideas are, what you will and won't support, and get together collaboratively. Do you want to hit the next slide? So basically this is the part where we are going to give you guys 20 minutes of question and answer as a group here together so everybody can hear what other people are asking and what the responses are. Then we will move into smaller group sessions where you'll be able to give feedback one-on-one to either a board member or staff member and administrator. If you do not get your question answered tonight or you think of an idea after you leave here or you're watching this online and you didn't get to attend, please feel free to email the board. We will come back with responses, and that way anything you don't think of tonight or doesn't get answered will get answered at some point soon. Thank you so much for your attention and for coming tonight.
Thank you, everybody. You can sit there. or you can answer.
What do you want me to? I'm not answering. Is this
Anybody?
on? Yours on or this
Mine
is
is on. That's on. Maybe you might have to turn it on.
Can you guys? Okay,
Yeah.
so you can't hear me. Okay, so who has a question?
Natalie Zellner. I want to know what the progress of the kindergarten expansion is. Has it been put out for bid? And are you guys over budget, under budget, at budget?
We are at budget, and it is at the, we've sent it out for developing the documents, bid documents. Once the documents are made, it'll go out to bid. Could you please come to the mic so everybody can hear you?
Sorry, I missed the first part. So you said it's at budget?
Yes.
So I believe it was over budget, so you guys have cut costs on that?
We weren't over budget.
Okay, right. So it was supposed to be out for bid by the end of February, is that correct?
Middle of February, Tom? Middle of March.
Okay, so that's different than what's on the website.
It's on the website.
On the website, it says February out for bid. I'm curious because, you know, for me, I went to a lot of these meetings from the first time we had talked about, you know, what we were going to do with the growth in our district. And as a taxpayer, I'm frustrated because we're still paying for town line. And as a taxpayer, I'm also frustrated because I felt that we didn't get responses back. I mean, I went to that I think was the very first one where you had this meeting here at the school. It was back in May. And someone would ask a question and the response back would be, well, it'd be on the website. And the answer to the question was never on the website. Or sometimes I'd ask a question and somebody would say, go look at the frequently asked questions. But to me, that's not the kind of response I expect from the school board or from members of the people who help develop these plans, the types of response you want community if you want your community to support the board, you know, the types of answers, we'd be very happy to answer your question. We'll get your information for you. You know, my concern, in addition to, you know, the cost of what a bond might be, is what are the additional operating costs that are involved with, you know, putting a referendum out. Things like that. Questions like that never were answered. So as a community member, I can never go to a voting booth and say, yes, I support this, when I can't get answers like that. And I know that you had smaller meetings too that I did go to. And that's one of the things I mentioned to you, was that I felt that I wasn't getting those types of answers back. And I think sometimes other people didn't feel they were getting those types of answers back. And so the board has to, in my opinion, has to understand that as community members, we're concerned about what's happening with our money, and that when we ask a question, we really would like an answer. And you say you're going to put an answer on the website, put the answer on the website. And, you know, my best one was for them to tell me to look it up in frequently asked questions. It's not an okay response. But I do have a couple questions then. How many kids from the enrollment projections do you expect from the 5 different areas, from the 5 different development groups? You know.
Right now, I can tell you, Cuneo is expected to be about 128 coming, 112 coming from the 128 houses.
Okay.
This is a formula that is kind of run, and we're just running it. I don't know how accurate it is, knowing what the growth is or knowing how the enrollment is. I'm assuming predicting higher. We have Woodland Chase, which is coming down on 45, and Butterfield that has got about 17, so we're expecting about 45 out of there. 10 houses, I think it's about 1.5 depending on the houses. Melody Farms, we expect fewer kids from there because it's apartments and we don't see, and they're advertised as luxury apartments, so I'm not sure how many kids we'll get from there. We are running those projections off what Amli is, but we can be off. Most of the growth that we are seeing is between the new people coming into the townhouses and apartments, as well as the turnover in Deer Path and Hawthorn Club.
Right, because my understanding is we only have 4 kids coming from Omni anyway right now, right? So I would assume, unless that has changed, but when I did get the answer to that question, it would seem that we would have very few, maybe less than 10 kids coming from that.
It's more apartments, so I would assume, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Last time I looked at the numbers, Amli was running about 11 or 12 kids. Okay. So yes, they're a smaller group, maybe, but but like I said, Melody Farms is not the housing, the apartments, which the Century Townhomes, the Butterfield Park apartments. Those are the ones where we see turnover, where families, generational turnover, as well as new people moving in rentals with kids.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next question was up here.
I just have a clarifying question to ask really quickly. The space video and the comments about the elementary school space issues, are those what's remaining after the kindergarten building, or are those current and some of that already will be addressed by the kindergarten building?
Those are current issues, but a lot of it is absolute backfill. So, like Elementary South, they have displaced programming. They have kids sitting in closets for, and I mean, I'm sure Dr. Martin will be able to elaborate more on that, but I think those are going to be backfilled. So the PE space, even though the number of kids will go away, the PE space is small. The kids are still going to be in the kitchen.
Right. But I mean, the building is going to serve some sort of relief.
A little bit of relief,
it needed to happen, right? I mean, it was all touted that it needed to happen.
Yes,
so
and it is going to sort
some issues.
Yes, we'll have some issues, but we'll get some relief.
But the element it would be helpful to keep everything clear on what actions we're taking and what kind of progress is actually being made. Because we're not still in sort of the same place.
This is current. This is as of today.
I know. I'm just saying, I think for these types of things where you're asking for public comment, it's helpful to stay current and keep the information fresh and new based on that. Because I know everybody's doing a lot of work. I know there's a lot of feedback. So we're taking actions, we're making plans, nobody's sitting still. But some of this still feels like a regurgitation of what we already saw, and we need to leave more time for comment and new ideas and all that instead of rehashing maybe what is already old information, right? And the second piece, I think, is that we do need to talk about prioritization. So it would be good to sort of get feedback from everyone on what they do think the priorities are, because you can't do all of this big bang all at once. To your point, you said it was it would be unmanageable. But we keep talking about it in that way, and I think that makes it difficult for people to conceptualize and stomach the idea. And we should really prioritize. Like for me, the middle schools, I think, are the biggest issue. And so I feel like if we were to delegate funds in certain areas or put everything kind of in a project plan, it might be a little bit better. And for me, I would hope that the middle schools would be addressed first.
Thank you.
Robin,
yes.
Behind you.
Oh, okay. And then I'm going to get over to the other side before the 20 minutes are up, so they get a chance to.
So how are you planning to cover the operating costs for the kindergarten?
The operating cost for kindergarten is going to come from some of actually the staffing is, a lot of it is reassignment, because we already have the teachers, so they are going to move with their students right now. And some of the operating cost is going to come from the tax levy, which is for the first time a higher number on a CPI, as well as the new construction property taxes that would come, because they will all go online by 2019 when the building actually starts becoming operational. And some of that is going to be savings that we are going to start monitoring.
So you committed our future money without actually getting agreement from the community to build the kindergarten.
The
right?
budget for the kindergarten,
Because
I'm sorry.
we don't have operating costs right now. That's what I'm hearing from you. So my additional question would be: is all of the money that we're talking about for the new developments, wouldn't that also help our current space to give us more money? Because those are big houses; they should have a lot of taxes. What about all of that money? Why do you come back to the community and ask for more money for new developments when those new developments should be creating their own tax revenue into the schools?
So
what happens to that? Like we just have to keep paying more. We're still paying for Town Line. We're going to pay more. What about all the money from the new developments? The other thing I really question is you said we have more kids coming from apartments, moving into apartments and the townhomes. But yet, when you're looking at Melody Farms, you're saying those are apartments, so they shouldn't have very many kids. I think a lot of these facts, they don't really add up. So that's why the community doesn't have a lot of faith in what the board is coming to us with, because what is happening with all of that money? What is really happening with apartments? Are people moving into apartments with kids or not?
They are moving into apartments with kids. The only people who are not moving into the apartments that are not sending that many kids are Amli, with them being advertised as luxury apartments. And we are assuming that Melody Farms, since it's advertised at even higher rental costs than than Amli, we wouldn't see that many kids. As far as all the other apartments that are available in Vernon Hills, we are getting all the kids are coming from there. They are in Century Townhomes. They are in but it's a different sort of an apartment. I mean, that's what I'm trying to explain to you, that it's a different demographic of an apartment that is not seeing kids sending itself from Amli or Melody Farms, which are advertised as luxury apartments. But if you take Century Townfields or Butterfield Park apartments, those are the places where the kids are coming from.
Can I address one part of your comment? First of all, very valid concerns. Thank you so much for participating tonight. I think the concern with some of the new development and aren't those kids bringing in new taxes, some of them are very large homes. Yes, the answer is they are bringing in new taxes, other than Melody Farms is a TIF district, so it's handled a little bit different. But they also bring with students to educate, and we don't get to educate them for free and just pocket their taxes. So it's not all a net gain of whatever their tax bill brings. But yes, I do think you've raised lots of valid concerns that I don't know if you watched any of the board meetings. I know they're super fun and exciting, but I think a lot of us have raised some of the similar concerns over time. So stay tuned, and I think that all these topics will be brought back up. Is there anybody over here before I go to Ms. McCrae?
Can you hear me? I don't know if you can hear me, but
I can hear you.
The Melody Farm is a TIF district, so we don't get any tax money from those apartments at all. That's what the village had decided. That's TIF, so it's a tax increment financing. That's based on the village. That was their choice. What we do get is a per child amount based on what our expenses. So whatever, if we get 5 kids from that Melody Farms apartment, that's what we get. And that does not cover any expenses for buildings. We don't have that choice, so that's nothing we can do about that. We want to do something about it, we can talk to our village and see what they can do. So that's where we would have to bring up that concern.
My question is, ultimately, who decides what referendums are put up for vote? Because no human being in this village that I've spoken to wanted the referendum that went up. Every person that has a child with a stake in this district wanted the new school building put in with all the other accommodations. I'd like to know what the results were of the surveys that were taken when that was asked, and I'd like to know how those decisions are made about what goes up for vote. And when exactly is the kindergarten building going to be there? Who's going to control how that safety is done in a public building where you have no way to know who's going in and out of that building? It's a public park district building, and they're sticking our most vulnerable children in an end of it with a door that gets a code like their preschool has there. And my children have also attended that preschool. The fact of the matter is it gives you the idea of security, but they give out a code via email to every parent. Give it to the people who pick up your children. It's not incredibly safe. So my children don't go there anymore. How are we gonna, I have children coming into the kindergarten program. I have children that are going into the middle school program. At what point are you guys gonna start talking about the high school? Because that seems to be a problem as well.
We have no jurisdiction over the high school, separate district, but.
Well, I mean, it's part of the village. I would assume at some point somebody's gotta do something. So, I don't understand. At South, we drop off our children, if a car is in an area where it is not supposed to be, it immediately sticks out. How are you going to regulate at a public park building where people go now to vote, people go for everyday activities, where you got a whole lot of something happening up in the United States right now? How are you going to secure our most vulnerable children in that area?
Anybody else want to take it? Anybody want to take that?
I think Nick is most qualified to answer that.
Can you hear me?
First of all, the high school is not us. So the District 128 has its own board. So you can talk to them about it as far as that is concerned. As far as the voting and the referendum, it's your elected officials, which is the board who decided to put that thing on referendum. It was long sought discussions. We had board meetings after board meetings to discuss that. You might not agree with us, but we are the elected board. So we are the ones who decided that that is what we thought was the best for the community from the input we got. And that's what we decided to do. As far as the kindergarten building that is out there.
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay, good. Thank you. Excellent questions, obviously, with what's been happening recently. The kindergarten building design, we are working on a traffic pattern with the village, the library, and the park district that separates the traffic for both facilities. So it's identifiable who's going where, and that. We also have some security measures in the areas where they're connected. It's connected to the village, to the Sullivan Center, but in a very narrow area. It's not. There's just one doorway in there, but we have some security measures in there to make sure that there's no access. You mentioned something about access codes. I'll talk with the park district and at the Sullivan Center on what their process is, but we would have separate security access codes, things of that sort. It would not, so if you're somebody that goes to the Sullivan Center for picking up or an activity or something along those lines, you would not have the same security clearance or access to the kindergarten building. They would be separated from those. But we'll look into that in more detail and share more details as that comes along. But the separation of the drop-off pickup of the patterns will help us a great deal identify who's going where and keep those separated out. Thank you.
I'll come up to you, Mike.
We'll have it for about 5 more minutes before we break out into small groups so people can get their questions answered personally. They want to come up and ask.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for putting this on. I think the community really appreciates an opportunity to speak out. I don't have so much as a question, but more of a comment. The referendum went out and it was lost 60 to 40. There was about a 660 vote difference. And I think there's a couple things why it didn't pass. It's all speculation. One is trust, and the other one is the dollar amount that's going to come out of our pockets. So if we can get to trust the board, come up with a good solution with our input, which I think that's why we're here tonight. That's step one. And the dollar amount, if we can reduce that dollar amount to make it more tolerable, if you get down to the $30 million number, maybe. Now, I think my question, you said that it can go in phases, right? So if we do, if it was 42 million, but if you're doing it in phases, you're only drawing half of it. Is that correct? So instead of
yes, but okay. that what I was trying to explain is when we asked for the whole project, right? But like you said now, if the community gives us a feedback that 25 or 30 is a palatable number and that is what they would support, in 25 we will do what we think is the highest priorities and needs, and those will get tackled first. But the community should be aware that once we have spent those 25, there's still projects that we had taken off the table because the 42, 44, whatever that number would be, was for the whole thing. when you give a lesser amount. So the referendum was for the whole. We were going to do it in phases because we couldn't do all the schools at one time. It's a difference between agreeing to a smaller amount versus doing something in phases. Am I right?
Right. So, you know, you spoke like $26 a month, right? On property. That's not based on like a $350,000
Yes.
assessed value, correct? Okay. So use that as a baseline. That's at 42 million. So if you go down to 30 million, that's a 30% reduction in that number.
Yes.
I think.
Okay,
My math's
sorry.
correct. I was helping my son with his math tonight, so I think. So, but you know, the key here is lower, like smaller class sizes, possibly more teacher aides and more facilities. So if we can agree as a community, they can't campaign for the referendum, if I'm correct. Is that correct?
Yes, we can't.
We can. We didn't have enough time in the last one, I think. If we go November with the number, we can get out there. I'm willing to donate my time. Anything I can do, I think we can get, you know, there's a lot of passionate people in this room, in this community. We can get it done. 662 votes at 42 million. If we get that number down, maybe we can get it. But we all have to do it together, right?
Thank you, Mike.
So you said that the board is the one that makes the final decision and what referendum goes up. So what's the point of the meetings if you're not
To
listening
see
to
what
the parents?
the community feedback
But
is.
the last meeting, everyone voted for the new school that didn't go up.
No, it wasn't that way.
I was at the last meeting. I think it was like 42% of the parents, if I'm not mistaken, that wanted the new school.
But if I take only this much out of my 17,000 population, you know, depending on what other surveys and stuff comes, I can't just take this much. I have to listen to my whole community. The whole community is a different aspect. What you saw at the meeting might have been that group of people supporting that, but what we had, the overall, it was pretty split.
The final votes, I guess, that you took from the whole community? Or was it just...
It was what feedbacks we got at what?
Was it online? Did you guys put that on
We
your
had
website?
we had a phone survey, we had a poll online survey. What else did we have? Yeah.
Not the rest of the...
I believe, I don't remember the exact breakdown in numbers, but it does sort of stick out in my mind that there was not a lot of support for a new building and there was not a lot of support for adaptive reuse at that time. Now, we're here gathered tonight. The question is, did anything change? And we'll see moving forward here. And maybe nothing changed, but maybe something did change. So we'll find out. Thank you. All right. You want to take one more or you want to go into a small group?
Let's do, anybody else want to speak in a group session, or would you like, oh, this one here, the last one, and then we'll go for we'll break out into smaller groups.
Sonali, can we see if they'd like to break into small group or they'd like to continue going like this?
Sorry?
Can we see if the group wants to go into small group or if they'd like to continue like this?
I definitely think we should answer all the questions in the audience before we break out.
I'm cool with that.
Do we need like a consensus or?
Well, Julie, you told me you wanted me to ask a question here, so here I am asking a question for you.
Oh, I did tell you to come in, come and give input, yes.
First, can I just say thank you to our principals and our teachers and our educators for being so creative with the space that they have and doing what they can for our children, which is extremely important, and it can't be easy. You know, someone brought up the issue with security, which is, you know, with everything that's going on in the country right now, is a big concern. And we talk about what's going on at South, Elementary South, and we have these 2 portables. And getting around that, we're going to have to build more portables. And what is that for the security for our children? So don't get me wrong, a dollar amount is a huge issue for me in taxes, but I think there's more at stake here and some things that we need to take into consideration.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you. Sorry, there was another one.
Hi, I had more of a comment than a question,
But I just wanted, I guess, to ask the parents, how many of you guys feel you understand where the operating costs per day go? Do a lot of you understand that the special education services are prohibitively expensive and we have a ton of kids who have needs in the district, that we have a lot of kids that are currently not English-speaking students who are receiving services? So yeah, it is an added expense, and as a taxpayer, I totally get that, but I also know, and because I'm in the schools a lot, that we have kids who need us, and the money that we bring in needs to go to the staff to help our children. That is the most important thing. And if you have questions, please do talk to your principals about what it costs to educate our kids, because it takes a lot of money, and some of our teachers are the best I have ever seen, so it's money well spent in my book.
Thank you. Was there another question, comment? I'll come up to you.
You're getting your workout in.
Thank you so much for putting this together. One thing that is a bit confusing is you mentioned that there is a building that's getting added onto the elementary north, but then the cost associated with that is $8 million or so. Is that the cost associated with just that addition of that building? It's a bit confusing, maybe.
For elementary north?
Yeah, and then,
sorry.
or is it the elementary north share of that $42 million that would be paid for?
Could you just give me a minute? It'll be easier for me to pull that out. Elementary North in that referendum had about $7 million, in which the addition was, some of the addition was also not only just the renovation, but the health, life, safety of upgrading of all the systems that we knew do make it ADA compliant and stuff, but it was also the EC pre-K coming back. That was a part of that Elementary North building addition, bringing the six or seven classrooms that we have right now at Lincoln and Mundelein. If we brought those students back, who are our students, but the EC pre-K, that cost was added into the $7 million of Elementary North.
While I'm moving on to the next person, I'll come over to you. In case anybody is wondering where the money goes every day and what our operating expenses truly are, that nice gentleman at the end of our table over there, Mr. Abe Singh, one of the nicest people that you'll meet in this district, he can answer all of your questions, and he will sit down with anybody one-on-one who wants to go over things with a fine-tooth comb. Because I know that it is really hard. I had a really hard time when I first got on the board wrapping my head around all of it.
Maher Nalawi, I have, I guess, a comment and question. The last referendum, the total cost of the project was $42 million, and we really didn't, at least personally, didn't get education about what it would cost each house in terms of taxes. I would really suggest going forward, if we're going to put a referendum, that we put it in a dollar amount like today. An average house, $350,000, your liability per month would be this much. Then we understand. I think it spooked me, and I voted yes for the referendum because I have kids in school, but it didn't, the dollar amount did frighten me a little bit about liability. I didn't understand how much it would mean to me personally. It's more of a message.
It's great feedback. Was there anybody else up here?
I just wanted to say that I don't want to see the programs in our schools cut, like PE and art and music. And I think if we need to have a referendum, we need to have a referendum, maybe going at it in parts, like he said. But I also think that it was poorly advertised. Maybe that's not the board's fault, but the parents should group together and get together. I know I have relatives that live in the district. They only knew about the referendum because I was coming to meetings and because I was telling them, and they do read the newspaper, but the first information they got about the referendum was maybe a few weeks before. No one went door to door. We got no one at our house. I don't know if anyone else got anyone. I think that we need to group together and work for it, and maybe if the community didn't support it the first time, there has to be a few changes, but there shouldn't be cuts. And there shouldn't be cuts even if it means, if we are running another building, which would be the kindergarten center, we do have increased operational costs. But we need to plan for the increased operational costs of that kindergarten center and everything that you're adding on without cutting the current programs that are in the schools now. PE, art, music, those extras are important for the kids. PE is important for the kids 5 days a week. Art is important for them. We came to this district because it's a well-rounded district when we moved, and we want it to stay well-rounded. I will vote for a referendum, but we also need to go to the community and say, this is how we're gonna plan to pay for the new building and to pay for the new additions. Because, you know, you hesitated on your answer about the cost and running the buildings. But we wanna know, and I wanna know as a taxpayer, that if I'm gonna be paying increased taxes for the buildings and for the kindergarten center and for all the referendums, I also want to know that my kids are going to still have the programs that they need, the PE, the art, and the gym. And the PE 5 days a week, because I think it's important for the kids to get out of the classroom, especially on days when there's no snow, or there's snow and they're in that classroom all day long with indoor recess. They need to have a PE class, they need to have an art class, they need to leave their classroom, and that's very important. And so I think we need to keep going with the funding, you know, towards that.
Thank you. Is there anybody else while I'm up here before I go? Glad I wore comfortable shoes tonight. Anyone?
Okay. Abe.
I'm tempted to tease you and tell you no, but yeah.
So, just at the beginning of the program, our superintendent told us about all the accolades, everything that's been going on with the ranking of our high school. That starts in the elementary schools, from our teachers. If they don't have the tools and the resources and the space to teach, what do you think is going to happen in the future? All that's going to go down. So let's keep it going, okay?
Thanks. Anybody else? Anybody on the board? Okay, so is this where we break into small group for anybody that didn't want to comment or question now? Okay, so we will have at least one board member or administrator at each table, and we will be recording all feedback, and we will be sharing that feedback with the community once we kind of compile it all. But feel free to leave if you need to leave, stay if you want to stay. Like I said, you walk out the door, you think, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't share that thought and I thought of something. Email us, and we will get to it. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for coming, and there's coffee and cookies out there. If the presentation is live, if your friends couldn't see it, please encourage them to see, ask them to write to us. We will get the responses back one-on-one, individually. We have been very good about it. Thank you.
They'd have like a finance teacher. They wanted a little bit less. Next. Some people are just cruising. Well, because and that doesn't mean that somebody might not have something, but I mean,